Hi, I'm Sean Waterman and you're watching Cyberscoop TV. Today we're here, day 3 of RSA, as always in the middle of the action on the exhibit floor, and joining me here, Mark Sachs, CSO of the North American Electricity Reliability Corporation. Hey Mark, thanks for stepping by.
Absolutely my pleasure.
So tell me about NERC. What is it?
What do we do?
Yes,
well, so NERC has been around almost 50 years. Formed back in the 1960s following the big power blackout in New York City as a group that came together to make sure something like that never happens again. So been around for a while. It was a council in its early years, but following the blackout in 2003, a lot of interest put into let's make sure this doesn't ever happen again. So we changed our name a little bit and took on a new mission in 2006, so about 11 years ago, where we now have statutory authority to create, issue, and enforce mandatory requirements. So regulations for keeping the grid secure and reliable. We call these the CIP standards, the Critical Infrastructure Protection Standards. We're up to version 5. They've been built collaboratively, so this is not something we just do on our own. Utilities and others, it's open, transparent process, have been building, updating, modifying, perfecting these CIP standards. This is why we think here in North America the grid works as well as it does. It's as reliable as it is because we have these standards. It's very unique, and it applies to all of North America. So we're talking United States and Canada and parts of Mexico that are interconnected with the western part of the U.S. grid. So no other country has this, no other region. And it's a testament to the understanding of the professionals that run the grid, as well as our partners in government at the federal level, as well as state and provincial, that this type of approach actually works. And we love doing it because it works.
So here at RSA, there's been a lot of talk about critical infrastructure protection, perhaps more than in previous years. Why is that?
I think there's been a large awakening in the last 10 years or so. So it started back with Y2K. We're 17 years ago. A lot of concern about, are we too dependent on computers and computer networks? So that a little programming error, like a 2-digit date field, might cause everything to collapse. So that was a big awakening. September 11th, not cyber, but definitely kind of got us going. That 03 blackout was a change event. And since then, as you know, in the enterprise world, the growth of criminal activities, the phishing, ransomware, all the stuff we're seeing has really been scaring people. But around 2008 or so, this national or nation-state threat began to emerge, the APTs, the Advanced Persistent Threats. And the real genuine concern, could some adversary get inside of a critical infrastructure and cause it to stop, cause it to break, cause actual harm because of cyber? And that's a very good question. It's a very rational question. So we've been working to try and uncover, could it be done? Could something like that actually happen? And this again goes back to those CIP standards. So as we're finding ways, pathways, weaknesses, we're working with the industry to make sure we make those weaknesses go away. The biggest areas that we find is what we call common hygiene. Things like keeping things separated, changing passwords frequently, not opening email attachments, using firewalls, intrusion detection systems. The big deal, of course, is separation. If you don't need to be connected to the internet, don't be connected to the internet. When we start doing those common sense things, it really brings the temperature down. And this not just in electricity, but all critical infrastructure makes us that much safer. But we also have humans, people, employees, who are bound and determined, right? They're going to click a link, they're going to take a USB stick, they're going to do something. So there's a training piece there. We have to train the human to also be aware of these threats, and don't let normal human behavior cause a problem. The introduction of social media in the last 10, 15 years, as the iPhone has come of age and Android phones, we're all on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat, you go on and on. That's changed the chemistry as well. People want to talk, they want to communicate, they want to share. And what previously had been a very private, closed environment is now being shared broadly. So we have lots of interesting, socially wonderful things coming in, but it adds a lot of uncertainty to security. So this is why you see stuff like this here at RSA. There's a lot of interest in security, and we have to be interested in it. We have built this big thing called the internet. It doesn't go away. It was not designed to be secure. It was designed to work. That's
Right.
what they were, make it work, make it always available. Security, well, that'd be on the edge. The users will secure it. Well, back in those days, the users were scientists and researchers and government officials, and they understood kind of the philosophy of security. Today, over half the planet is connected to the internet. Those are the users. And security is not the mindset. It's really, what can I do? How can I be enabled? How do I socially use this thing? So I think we're seeing these changes, these technology changes is one of our biggest threats, and we want to stay ahead of it. And again, that's why you see a lot of activity here at RSA, and not just for critical infrastructure, for any business is very interested in making sure they stay secure.
So for the grid particularly, and you know, the companies that own and operate it, how big an event was the pre-Christmas 2015?
2015, yeah, 1915. Yeah. That would have been a very interesting grid attack. Certainly, you're talking about Ukraine.
I'm talking about Ukraine just before Christmas.
Ukraine
2015.
for us was an enormous learning experience, because up to that point, we were not aware of any cyber-type successful disruption of electricity. Now, there's been cyber attacks; those have gone on for years, even back to the 80s. We could find evidence of attacks, but we were never aware when somebody actually turned off somebody's electricity remotely, unauthorized. Now, there is authorized. We'll take that off the table. So this became unauthorized activity. Luckily for everybody, it was only 3 little local utilities, some substations.
Right.
Lights are turned off, no mechanical damage. Lights are turned back on. As soon as the utility gained manual control of the systems, lights are back on. No harm, no foul, lots of embarrassment, lots of learning, but the grid didn't collapse, nothing was broken, things like that. We did see a repeat just at the end of last year, 1 year later.
Right.
Another substation had a similar type of problem. A quick investigation showed that lessons that we thought were learned the previous year were not really learned. Same mistakes were repeated. It goes back to what I was talking about earlier with those basic things that you do, basic hygiene. We found evidence that was not being followed. So worldwide, when we see something like what happened with Ukraine, we learn from it. And we quickly took those lessons learned, brought them right back here to North America, and we informed all the grid operators here, here's exactly technically what happened. Go look and make sure you're not making the same mistakes. Pointing out it's largely hygiene. And the good word we got back was, no, we're ahead of this problem. But we're not saying cyber is impossible. You can always have a cyber attack. Somebody may someday be successful using some technique we haven't thought of yet. But that's our job, to be vigilant, to try and stay ahead of that, to learn what the bad guys are up to, how they're thinking, what might be a new attack sequence. You know, could the Internet of Things, a new emerging technology issue, could that be a threat to the power grid? Up to date, not so, but there's always tomorrow or the year after. Could remotely piloted vehicles or all the new technologies coming out of Google and Amazon and countless other companies, could they be a threat to us? Well, in 2017, no, but next year, maybe. So again, our role, we have to stay ahead of that. We have to understand what the threat is thinking, what's technology doing, how might that implicate grid operations, and what can we do right now to build in some safety and security systems, keeping the lights on, but allowing technology to continue to develop. Because we certainly don't just turn off technology development. That can't happen. That's not right, and we definitely want technology to be there and continue advancing, because we're looking for efficiencies, bring the costs down. We have new types of energy that are emerging, solar, wind, the renewables, as we like to call them. That is being built as we speak. We have to figure out how to integrate that in, how to control it, how to make sure the grid works, as again, these technologies beyond IT are introduced and brought into the mix. So it's a challenging world. Absolutely great time to be part of all this. And if you love security, we are definitely in the spotlight. If you're scared of security, well, there are other opportunities out there also for people who are technically minded, but security is definitely the place to be now and will be for the next several decades as we really begin to understand what this means. Kind of like what we went through with safety 100 years ago, trying to understand how to build safe systems. Today we just take it for granted that systems are safe. Tomorrow we'll take it for granted that systems are secure. But right now we have to kind of build that in and understand it, know what it means to be secure.
Well, that is a very upbeat point on which to end the interview, Mark.
Thanks Sean.
Very much.
Thanks, good to see you again.
And you can see more of us on cyberscoop.com or our YouTube channel.